Welcome to Wealth Matters Podcast. How are you, Colin, today?
Alpesh, man, I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. I love your podcast, and I thought it would be worth to having you on my podcast. So, yeah, why not? So,
It's a pleasure.
can you
Thank
tell
you.
my listeners what do you do?
Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur in a sense. Typically, what I do is I run the Daily Grind podcast.
Okay.
I started it back in November of 2017.
Oh, okay. Same
And
time as I started.
yeah, exactly. And it took me about a year and 2 months. And after a year and 2 months, this is kind of what I do full time. So I'm able to service my listeners and help them everywhere that I can. And I also do some speaking as well.
That's awesome. And you mentioned daily grind. So, is that a daily podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is 100% geared towards people who drive into work Monday through Friday, 9 to
Okay.
5. You know, they're looking for another way out. They want to find something that they're passionate about. So I provide them that platform Monday through Friday in order to give them some information and inspiration to break out and do something that they really love to do.
That's awesome. And that's what we are going to talk about. Our topic for today is how to build supplemental income using side hustle. And
hmm
what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
You know what? I grew up in an entrepreneurial family.
Oh,
So
okay.
for me, sports was everything when I grew up.
Uh-huh.
It was all I ever wanted to do. I became a professional golfer.
Oh,
And
really? Nice.
yeah, and then after about 3 years, I kind of lost my passion for that and wanted to transition into something new. And because entrepreneurship was in my DNA, because I'd seen my father and mother start and run their own businesses, I always knew that I didn't want to work for someone else.
That's awesome.
So although after I finished my golf career, I went to work for other people, my ultimate goal was to break out and do something completely on my own. And that's what really, seeing my parents work and seeing the freedom that they had to take me to different sporting events, to be involved in my life the way that they were, that really inspired me to kind of do that as well.
That's great. So you mentioned you were a professional golfer and then you also work for others. So while you were a professional golfer or when you were working for others, did you have any side hustles?
No. So I, as a professional golfer, I think as an athlete, it's one of
Of
those
course, you
things.
don't have time.
Yeah. Well, it's not that you don't have time. It's sometimes you just don't have the mental capacity to
That
do
is true.
something else, right? Like it takes so much focus and determination and hard work and clarity in order to reach certain
That's
levels.
correct. That's why we
So
hear a lot of time, right? That
yeah,
when big celebrities or they don't know what to do with their money and they end up being bankrupt or broke, right? Even though they have
yeah.
made like crazy amount of money and they don't know, how their money is being managed or how to invest that money, right?
Yeah, well, what happens is a lot of times athletes, your identity is your sport. So like
Right.
nothing else. And when you become a top end athlete, oftentimes you don't get the education level that other people would
Right.
get. So your life's completely different. And typically at age 30, when most people are starting their lives, I mean, you're
Uh-huh.
restarting. Like you're
Yeah,
doing things over completely. And to put it
that's
in
true.
perspective, like for anyone listening, imagine what you're doing right now. You had to stop and redo everything. And like,
Right.
what's a new? It's tough, right? Like it's
That
tough
is
to
true.
find what that is, especially if you love it, right? Like
Yeah.
especially if you really love it and saw
Right.
success in it.
Right.
Yeah. So just a difficult transition, but yeah, no side hustles. When I finished my golf career, I tried a whole bunch of different things and I failed at it, but there was a lot of benefit to it. So, once my golf career was over, I went through a period of obviously like, what am I going to do? And
Right.
I was depressed and
That's
questioning my
hard,
life.
right? Yeah,
No
coming out
doubt.
of being an
Still,
athlete and
I was looking for, a get quick rich thing. Like
right.
I started an e-commerce site. I started an online coaching business for golf.
Oh, okay.
I almost got in the car dealership game. And I was selling international real estate. I managed a restaurant, a golf course, a
Wow.
hotel. I served, I bartended, like I did there's so
So
many jobs I
so
did.
pretty much you tried everything like I do. Even though I have my IT gig,
Yeah.
I keep trying tons of things. And of course I fail at most of it, other than the
Yeah.
podcast and real estate. but I still keep trying.
Yeah. See, what happens though is when you try new things, right? Like even if you fail at it, you pick up a new skill. Like with the e-commerce
Exactly.
site,
Yeah.
I learned marketing. I learned how to put together a
Yeah.
website. Selling international real estate, I got comfortable over the phone talking with people, which made it super simple for me to transition into podcasting.
Right.
For you to understand how to manage people and how to deal with problems and complex problems. So no matter what it is that you're doing, you can, in the car business, man, that's insane too. So much you can learn from.
That's where you become the biggest salesman, right? That's what I've been told, that when you get into that, you learn everything about salesman.
No doubt, especially so I wasn't doing regular sales. We were doing
Right.
in-house financing. So we were
Oh,
using our
okay.
own to help people without credit get a
Hmm.
car loan. So people who typically would go to a car dealership couldn't get it. Maybe they've been bankrupt. They just have really bad
Right.
credit. We offered it to them, but you do it at high interest rates.
Right. Of course.
So it's risky, but it's also like a bit. But I wasn't passionate about it, and then because of
That
that, you just kind of like things just
that's the
falter off.
problem. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So then how did you get started with the podcast while you were doing all of this thing? What made you think about podcasts?
Yeah, so there was a critical turning point is, I was serving at the time and I looked back, I'm like, why am I failing at all these different businesses? And my father being an entrepreneur had a business. I just went to him kind of, as a kid, I thought I knew everything, tail between the
Right.
legs. Like, Dad, like, what am I doing wrong? Can you help me? And he's like, why don't you just spend some time in the business here, do some part-time work and
Right.
see how you like it. And I fell in love with it. And I sort of found my place and I found out how I could really help and benefit him. And I learned what I had been and why I had been failing. A, because I was egotistical and thought I knew everything.
Right.
B, because I didn't have a real passion for it. And then C, I saw all these other people starting businesses and a lot of other people were failing too. And I was able to see some commonalities. And the biggest
Mm.
thing that I was taking is that, people had done it before. When we're sick, we go and see a doctor. But for
Right.
some reason, our lives and with our business, we refuse oftentimes to get help and get outside
Yeah. Oh,
help. So I
that's
looked at
critical.
podcasting, right? I looked at podcasting as a way to learn at an incredible level. And I just was listening to an episode.
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to John Lee Dumas, who ran
Uh-huh.
EO5.
JLD. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reached out.
He's awesome.
I'm like, hey, man, this is my background. This is what I'm doing now. I'd love to share my story. And, he said yes, to my surprise.
Oh,
So I went on
nice.
his podcast. We saw some awesome results for our business. And it was at that moment, I'm like, I got to dive into this space more.
That's great. So what kind
Yeah.
of business does your father have?
Yeah, he helps startups find funding.
Oh,
So
okay.
whether
Okay.
you're looking for a bank loan or whether you're looking to present to a VC, he helps put together the business plan and presentation so that you're successful in doing that.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
I actually have something on that line. Maybe I'll reach out to you.
Feel free, man. My dad's the guy for you.
I have a friend, and I'm working with that friend, trying to help him raise some capital for his startup. So we will talk after the
You
podcast.
got it.
See, that's exactly why I started the podcast. Is just to connect with like-minded people, network with right people, and
That's
build my
right.
network. Right, learn from others. Yeah, and as you said, there are people who are ready to help if you are open to receive the help. Right.
Yeah, and there's something amazing about it too, right? Like I could reach out to Alpesh, like for those that I reach out to Alpesh and I could be like, Alpesh, will you give me 15 minutes of your time? Like you have no
Right.
idea who I am. You're like,
Yeah.
and you're like, maybe, like you got to know who the person is. But if
Right.
I reached out and I'm like, Alpesh, would you want to come on my show for 30 minutes? But you're like, oh yeah, I'd love to. Just people are
Absolutely.
innately wanting to help people in their position, right? So it was
Yeah.
just a unique way to get in touch with these people too.
Okay. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, when you started the podcast, you are still working in your father's business, right?
Yep.
So now after a year, you're out. You're just focused on the podcast and the speaking engagements.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, about a year. And like you said, about a year. I'd been working with my father for longer than that before the podcast started. But once I started the podcast, just over a year. And then I was off on my own.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
So, from your podcast, can you share some of the golden nuggets which you have heard from a lot of the successful people, or even people who are doing side hustles? That how did they get started, and what are the things you want to keep in mind while you're going for a side hustle? right?
I think I
What are
think with
some of the gotchas, maybe?
Gotcha. I mean, I think with a side hustle, it's really important to understand that when you're going in and you're trying to start something on the side, you got to be really, it's got to be something that you're knowledgeable about, and that you like to do.
Yeah.
It's so difficult when you go and you watch a webinar or you watch a YouTube video and someone's like, you could build this e-com store and you could be making money while you sleep. It
Right.
sounds awesome, but everything is not always what it seems. It
No.
always takes hard work. It always takes a commitment. So doing something that you just do on a regular basis that you love, whether it's watching sports or whether it's a show you love, and
Right.
just starting something around what you already normally do and that you're knowledgeable about, that's one. And then two, to go in and learn from someone who's done it. So much in the same way, which I said before, there's someone who has the proven path, who's shown the way, learn from them. And then not worry so much about what's going to happen 6 months to a year from now. Like,
Right.
don't get into it's good to plan, but it's
Right.
also bad to over plan. Like, so many people, you're like, oh, I'm going to start this side hustle, but like,
Yeah.
what about a bank account? Or what about when someone does this? Or what happens if they ask for this? Like, you're going to figure
Right.
it out as you go. Just
Right.
get started with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the big, that, like, even with the podcast, I had no idea what I was doing,
Right.
but I reached out to people. 20 people said yes to be on my show. I didn't have a name. So I'm like, I got to figure out a name. I'm like, how do I air this? I got to figure out how to air it. How do I market this? I need a website. You
Right.
just figure it out as you go.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you because I started in November 2017, so I went through the
Mm,
exact same
yeah, of
situation,
course.
and then even when I started the podcast, I was at first I was thinking about, oh, what's going to happen with my podcast? How am I going to monetize it? Now
Yep.
after a year, I'm not even bothered if it's monetized or not. Of course, I want to make money out
Yep.
of it, but I'm like, yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm passionate about it. Things will fall into place, right? Um,
For
as
sure.
long as, and most of the podcasts fail. I did not know that, but the more I started reading, within first 6 months, most of those podcasts fail. So if you continue for at least a year, uh, there is a statistics which say that yes, you are going to go for much longer, right? So
For
I'm
sure.
hoping that's the case. But can you tell us what did you do to start monetizing your side gig, like
Yeah.
podcasts?
Yeah. When I was, when I started podcasting, I did it with the intention of learning and helping people, but I also did it with the intention of this being a business.
Right.
Like, I think most people could say that as well. Like, every podcaster out there, they love it, but you want to make money
Oh
off of it.
yes, yes, of course.
Yeah. So for me, I went in with that intention. And as I got into the space, I started to read things online about, you needed, 10, 15,000 downloads before a company would take you seriously and give you
Right.
money. And they're only going to give you $20 per thousand
Right.
downloads. And like, I was running a business at the time, and it was very confusing to me because, we spend thousands of dollars on cold leads every single day.
Right.
It didn't matter where it came from or who they were. It just is what it is. So I went in with the intention of like, I'm going to do things differently with this. Like, so many people have all these different rules set out. I'm going to get sponsors before people said I should get sponsors,
Oh,
or people
okay.
be willing to give me money. I'm going to listen to who my listeners are. I'm going to create products and programs and things that will really help them. And I'm going to do it so that I get a gain and that the listener
Right.
gets a gain as well. So I went in with just a different approach, and I sort of just did things completely. I reached out to companies, and I'm like, I'm a small show, and this is great for anyone who's a smaller podcaster or getting started or doesn't have huge numbers. I have a show, but I have a loyal following. I think your company would be great. I would love to run a little test to see if this would be something that would be beneficial for you and beneficial for me. Would you be open to discussing that? Most companies are going to say yes.
That's awesome.
And then you want to figure out, like, what are the metrics that these companies are trying to hit? So based on the amount of people listening to your show, how many people do you want to visit the website? How many people do you want to buy your products and services for you to continue on this long term? And I got those numbers, and I did everything I could to hit them. And they
That's
hit them, and the agreement went forward. And that's just and it's business is business, right? Like,
right.
people could be selling the same product or service, like this pen here. There's
Mm-hmm.
pens that cost $1 and there's pens that cost like $1,000. Like
$1,000.
it's a
Yep.
pen, right?
It's
There's
yeah,
no
yeah.
rules on what you can charge. So I just thought
Exactly.
that same thing. Like if this person's selling a $10,000 program and they sell one every time I air an episode, I'm worth a lot of money to that person. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter about listeners. It matters
That
about,
that's true.
so you understand your worth as opposed to understanding like, oh, per 1,000 downloads. So for me, I took that approach.
That's great. Thank
Mhm.
you. So let's take a quick break, Colin, and after the break, we'll continue discussing about side hustles.
All right.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. I'm talking to Colin Morgan regarding how to build supplemental income using side hustle. And he did share pretty good information regarding how he started his podcast and then that side hustle became his main business. So I do want to ask him, and even this could be selfish because even I want to know that if he can share a golden nugget or a tool or a website to all of us, who are wanting to become entrepreneur. Means everyone, I think, has somewhere in their heart that they want to get out of their job, or they also at least want to start a side hustle to supplement their income or increase cash flow or whatnot. So Colin, would you have any tool or website or information where I can go and get more idea about how I can move from being in a 9 to 5 job and start my own side hustle?
For sure. I think so. I'll preface this. I think that the most difficult thing to do is like you're trying to start something else, but you have the lack of knowledge and information,
Right,
right? It's like a doctor doesn't know how to fix an arm. Like you
right.
go to another doctor. So like you need the information, you need the knowledge. So for me, you need to start learning at a rapid rate. There is no better website out there that makes it super simple for you and cheap. Like you can learn stuff for $12 and take whole courses, and it's Udemy.
Oh, yeah, I love
Yeah.
Udemy.
Yeah, Udemy just gives everyone the chance of like
Yeah,
figuring out, okay, you go back, what am I passionate about, what am I
right.
decent at right now, ask your friends. Once you figure out a few of those things and what you'd be interested in doing, Udemy has courses on how you can start a lot of these things, and just makes it super simple for people to do it, where you don't have to go to school and spend $50,000. You can go to Udemy
Right.
and spend like 500 and have a pretty good
Yeah,
education.
yeah. And
Yeah,
that's a great website where you can start and figure out, spend 100, $200 and realize, oh, this is not for me. That's not a problem,
exactly.
right? That you did not get started and spend like 10 grand into a business and realize that you failed, right? So this is a great
100%.
idea. And also, I love when you mentioned about passion, right? It's
Yep.
very, very important. Even if you don't know something, like me, I didn't know anything about real estate and kept learning and learning, but I
Yep.
was passionate about it. I was so
Exactly.
sure that I really want to do this. I started enjoying that piece of it, and that there was no going back after that.
100%. I mean, I think so many people like when you, even the word side hustle, right? Like I think so many people when you hear that, like I did, you think like this is going to be something quick that I don't have to do,
Right.
right? And it's just it's not going to happen because we're humans, right? Like
Right.
instead of watching your favorite Netflix show, you're going to sit back and go, can I swear
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go
Okay, you'd be like, oh
ahead.
fuck, like I forgot to do that business idea. You're like, I'd rather watch friggin' Mary in this show here. So
Right.
I'm just gonna sit here, drink my beer, and not do that. But when you like really
Exactly.
are passionate about it, you're like, Mary and Netflix can wait.
Yeah, I don't care.
I'm doing that. So
Yeah.
that's where you got to find what that is. And that's
Yeah.
why I always say, go back to what you do right now. Think about what you
Yeah.
do and what you're interested in right now.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's exactly what I did for 2 years, 2018 and 2019.
Yeah.
Learned a lot about real estate, taxes, podcasting as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I started enjoying. I can talk about those topics now all the time. It's in my sleep too. That's the amount of time I spent. And of course, I'm passionate about it. That's when I can speak about those topics, right? But I
Exactly.
100% agree.
And you don't have to be an expert in this stuff either. Like I think
No.
so many people have imposter syndrome to be like, I don't know if I'm good enough, or like,
Yeah.
how is someone going to pay me if I haven't done this yet? My girlfriend, I'll share a story right now. So my girlfriend, full-time teacher, She's amazing at what she does, but she wants to do something different, right? And right now she wants to create a little side hustle. She built my website, rebuilt my website
That's
recently,
awesome.
and didn't even know she could build websites. But I'm like, here's this template I built.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about it? She's like, oh, this is garbage. Like, move this
Oh,
aside.
okay. Yeah.
I'm in. She created it for me. And then I'm like, you could probably do this for other people. And she's
Right.
like, do you really think that? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. So she built her own website. She reached out to a few people. And today, like I'm talking like today, she got her first client.
That's awesome.
And you know what?
Congrats.
Like it shows that anyone can do it if you just have like that little
Right.
bit of knowledge and then you just have that follow through too, right? And then you're like, wow, like this really worked. And there's no better motivator out there than money for you when you're just starting.
Of course.
Right? Like, oh my God, like someone paid me for this. Like this is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And it just gives you that little push to be like, I want to do that again.
Yeah. And great story actually, because it's so easy to learn everything right now. YouTube,
Yes.
Udemy, like I was a website developer about 15 years ago, and now I don't even want to touch my own website because I don't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
But it was so hard to learn at that time, 15, 20 years ago when I got
Yep.
out of school. Yeah, right now everything is available. WordPress, everyone uses WordPress, themes are out there.
Yep.
And you can, there are so many websites to market yourself. Fiverr.com,
Yep.
Upwork.com, Freelancer, Elance.com. I keep telling people, if nothing else, if you know something and this is what you do in your day job, you can start selling yourself on Fiverr and Upwork and start a side gig.
100%.
And as you said, money is a big motivator. Once you start getting paid, you're like, okay, I have extra income. Now I can do something else with
It
it.
makes it believable for you, right?
Yeah.
Because that, like at the beginning, I relate. Like you're like, oh, this would be amazing, but it's like you still don't have that like full belief in your head. You're like,
Yep.
that sounds cool, but like it hasn't happened yet. And then when it happens for you, starts to happen, that's like the ultimate motivator, right?
Yep. Yeah, and actually today is the first day where I'm going to get paid for my podcast. So after a year and about 3 months, so and as I said, of course I want to
Awesome.
make money too, but I never
Yeah,
focused on it. And once you keep doing what you're passionate about, things will fall into place.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that's great. So one more question I have is I have heard that any new business venture can take at least a year or so before breaking even. Is that true? Like if you are starting a new business, it's, of course you
Yeah,
can
I
have
mean,
side hustle. So
it is
should people
true.
have passions, right, in this game?
You know what? It is true. Like it can. So the
Right.
answer is it can, but it doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to. Yeah.
So like don't hold yourself to this. And it's what people say all the time. You read and you're like, oh well, if I don't make money for a year, then I'll be okay. Don't go in with that intention.
Right.
But if you're okay with that, then that's great too. But go in with the intention of like, I'm going to make this work from day one. I'm going to grind and do what I got to do and learn to make it work. But don't like have that in the back of your head always like, oh, well, I'm only 6 months in. I haven't made any money. I'm okay yet. I got 6 more months to go. Because that sort of the way of thinking will kind of keep you where you are. But whereas if you go from right now, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? No holding back. I'm going to do it every day consistently, not just on Tuesdays when I'm motivated, but like instead of reaching out to 100 people on Tuesday, I'm going to reach out to 5 people Monday through Sunday. You'll see better results that way.
Right. No,
Yep.
that's a great advice. So, and one more question I have, and this is an interesting question actually, because you have interviewed so many people in a year, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
do this daily. Um, After talking to this many people, do you have any ideas for side hustles where this is an emerging technology or this would be in demand for from a year or two now or 5 years from now? Can you share some of those ideas, or if you know?
Well, you know what? Like, I don't have the knowledge to give you like what to invest in. So,
Right.
like, I'm not an expert in that. So, find someone else who's an expert in that. I think what's really interesting is because of all of the technologies that are in play, I think that based on the amount of people that I've interviewed and the feedback I'm getting is that your knowledge, like communicating, like basic communications is going to be in such high demand because
Okay.
technology is going to be able to take over a lot of these things that people do on a
Right.
regular basis. like all of a sudden people who are experts in digital like everything's going to be done for you. There's
Oh
going to be a
yeah.
computer
Yeah.
that knows how to do that way better, that you can just type
Right.
something in and
Right.
it's
And
done.
faster.
But if you can effectively communicate with people, that's just such a tool. And I know it's like one of those things where how is that a side hustle? But like really think about, like, I go back, like, what are you doing right now? Like,
Yeah.
what do you do for
Communicating.
fun? And it's just, it is about communicating. How do you communicate with people? How do you build up that muscle? And if you're looking to make a little extra side cash, well, I mean, there's so many different things you can do for that, but ultimately, like, look at the long term here. Like, look at, just like you did, you grinded for a year and 3 months, but then look what happens today, right? And then
Right.
people are like, man, how do you get people to pay you to do a podcast? You're like, because I worked my ass off. Like, if you could tell people, like, if you could
Right.
tell people that if you started a show, say, and for 2 years, you're just going to eat it. Like, you're not going to make any money. It's going to be a struggle, grind. You're going to question yourself, but you're going to love it. But after 2 years, something crazy will happen where you'll start to supplement the income you're making. And maybe you could do this full time. Like, I think in the thinking of it, people are like, oh, that'd be awesome. But
Yeah.
actually doing it is something different.
That's the, as I said, passions, right? You
Yeah.
also not only need passion, but you also need to be patient.
Yes. There you go. Yeah, of course.
That's awesome. Anything else you want to share, or we forgot to chat about?
You know what? What are you excited about right now? I want to learn more about you. What are you excited about right now, Pesh?
I'm looking for some mobile home parks in a couple of states. So I'm excited about looking at those deals. I actually made a couple of offers, so that's what I'm focused on. And of course, my podcast. I enjoy that.
Awesome, man. Well, if you need help in any way, reach out. What I'll do for the audience here is I do this on every show. And it's interesting because I do this on every show. There's maybe thousands of listeners. I'll give away one spot, like a 150-minute call with someone who truly wants to take something from me or learn something that I'm saying, if something resonates, or just meet me. I'll give away a 15-minute call with a listener to help them in any way. And in order to be eligible for that, okay, you got to rate and comment on iTunes, El Pesha's show here. Screenshot that and send it to me. You can either do it on email or on my website, dailygrindpodcast.com, or just follow me on Instagram, Colin Morgan, DGP, and just screenshot that to me. And the first person that does that, I'll hook you up.
That's awesome. Thank you for that offer, Colin. And thank you so
Got it.
much. I thoroughly enjoyed the show.
Me too, man. I love your platform. Love what you're doing. Keep grinding.
Will do.